Hello, namaste, and welcome to the fourth episode of MD Speaks. In the last episode, we spoke about how innovation became the buzzword at BARSYL. Today, we will discuss how innovation crept into corporate governance. Hello, Sunil.
Hi, Aruna.
So, we were talking about how technically you were looking at technical expertise in the first few years after BARSYL was established. When did you think of bringing about change in the corporate setup?
Okay. Like I told you last time also, that innovation somehow was inherent in our DNA. And as an organization, we never wanted to kind of appear as a mom and pop store, so-called. So we were very clear that unless we do something differently, unless we professionalize the whole setup, though there were hardly 10 people, but then unless that becomes a system or a systemic kind of concept, it will never go forward. So that's how we started looking at how can we get in professional help to kind of bring in new thinking, bring in new ideas. So one of the earliest, in fact, for our size of company, I don't think so it has been ever done, but we were hardly maybe billing a couple of lakhs a year or something, but then we actually hired a management consultant, Sadhguru Consultants from Hyderabad, to help us devise a marketing kind of strategy, because
you wanted to explore other markets.
Yes, because more than explore, we also wanted to know, because I was the only so-called non-railway man there. Now, I also had very limited knowledge, whereas the others didn't. So, we just wanted to know whether we were doing right or how we could market our services. And even in India, what more we could do, because it was just a nascent market. There was really nothing much. So, that was our first step towards bringing in professional help to outside. And then we realized the benefit of that yes, it gave us new insights, though some of them were not really implementable. But then at least it opened our eyes. It gave us ideas and things like that. So from there, I think the journey started off.
You already had Mr. Prabhakar Rao to train
to train us, but he was more training only, but we never knew, because nobody from marketing, everybody was a railway domain specialist. We never had business specialists with us, excepting me with not really business, but some kind of corporate experience. So that is what we thought, that having an outsider would actually help us to, give us this kind of idea. And that is what helped us. And from there onwards, we sort of, realized that, yes, not only thinking wise, but even at the corporate governance level, we should be kind of looking at how we could have more people around to guide us, to kind of enlarge our understanding, enlarge our vision. So one is of also looking at kind of not just current, but also more like a succession plan at the senior founder level. We also needed to have like-minded people who could not really be founders, but were part of the growth story.
So you wanted to look beyond family and friends.
Exactly.
And bring some professionalism.
Yes. So we wanted to, one is, we never thought of family and friends at all. Everybody was looking more at an organization point of view. So we looked at people who could add value to the organization, who would those be, and also bring in stature. Because like I said, since we were small, both, in terms of numbers, value-wise, so we wanted people who could actually add value, and that is where we identified the first such resource, or who virtually became more or less a co-founder, was Mr. M.Srinivasan, who was a member of the railway board. And fortunately, he post-retirement he wanted to settle down in Secunderabad, because that was his hometown. He originally belonged to Secunderabad. So Mr. Arjun Prasad, during his service days itself, since they had worked together, he spoke to him and sort of convinced him. And he was more than happy having, being colleagues together, and also knew the reputation of the organization. He was happy that, yes, rather than, so-called associating with some other organization, he'll be happy. So he technically became our first executive chairman. We never had a chairman's post. Then he became our first executive chairman post-retirement. And yes, the organization, till his passing away, immensely benefited from that. So that was again a non-founder, non-family person. So that also, gave us a lot of confidence that yes, people from outside of the family could actually add value, and we could also learn from them kind of. So in that sense, I think that was another confidence building for us, that we started getting that yes, if we have right people with us, we would be able to kind of...
So also you didn't have any other companies like yours. You were one of the pioneers. So to devise a strategy also, it required a lot of innovation.
Yeah. So what we never really looked at because there was, like you rightly said, there was no benchmarking in our
You already, if you have a couple of players, then it's...
Yes. So there's nothing to benchmark. So what we looked at is we looked at general industry, any service industry. That time, in fact, IT was not even as big, so we couldn't even compare ourselves to IT then. But
Correct.
we started looking at, general engineering consultants or, any of the service industry, what kind of things they were doing. Unfortunately, majority of the engineering consultants were still family owned, though they were large, but they continue to be family owned. Despite that, we started looking at, what we could, like I said, do different as a business. We never looked at it purely from railway or from consulting, but as a business, what we could do differently. And I personally started interacting more with non-railway people, say from the banking industry, from the finance industry, from some of those venture capitalists those days who were just coming up, to understand, what they look at in a business. So that again, we were able to bring in those kind of inputs from them.
To apply the general principles of marketing to something like yours is a
yes,
challenge, right?
To a certain extent we could, but then yes, some of them, like you rightly said, see, for example, initially for us, track maintenance was a very big portion of our work. Almost 80% of our revenue came from track maintenance. But track maintenance is a purely labor job.
Correct.
And that is purely considered a contracting job, technically not a consultant. So how did we make a difference? That is where, like you rightly said, we brought in my marketing kind of input there. We created that as a brand, so-called. We kind of never went and projected ourselves as contractors. We actually got a proper brochure made offering the benefits of what a professional track maintenance company could do. Though it was purely labor oriented, but what we would have. We also set up the organization where we would have a young site manager, depending on the size. We would either have a site engineer or a site manager who need not have been a railway man. So that also gave a differentiation, that he was a professional engineer who was there. So interaction became professional. We created so-called, daily or weekly report books, which the client could see that what we are planning to do in our activities as a preventive maintenance, and whether we were following up or not. So these were some of the things which we took from general, marketing, sales.
So you actually changed the perception of
yes. So that is how, and mind you, majority of our clients were state governments, electricity boards. So you can understand, where purely hardcore contract was their thinking.
Correct.
They became biggest kind of, supporter for us. And even in a place like electricity board, we actually were kind of invited to bid for jobs. And wherever we got in, we were granted extensions without going for tender again. They were so happy. So that perception to us, what we created in terms of both quality of work, in terms of this overall professional setup, was totally different, because they were used to dealing with labor contractors, basically. So when they realized that there was a professional talking to them, our site engineer or manager would go to meet the engineers every day, report to him, give out formal documents that this is what we are planning to do for next 1 week, and this is what we've done in the past week. So these kind of things we picked up, like you rightly said, from conventional sales reports.
So you brought in a person who could talk to the management and with the labor.
Exactly. So those days, mind you, there were no emails, there were no mobile phones.
Yeah.
So
much more difficult.
Yes. So we would depend on faxes, or we would depend on maybe telephone calls, STD calls, to keep ourselves updated and things like that. So these were the things which, like I said, we innovated literally. There was nothing like a formal maintenance report, or there was nothing like, because everybody, the contractors would say that, yes, your train is moving, so everything is hunky-dory kind of thing. But we never depended on that. So we would actually give out a plan for a month, or then break it down into fortnight, break it down into weekly plan to the customer. And one copy would also be sent by post to the head office. And next week they would follow up as to what has been completed to the plan. So these kind of innovations is what we brought in, which help us in monitoring work, in doing good work, and also the customer. And they were very satisfied. Like I said, I think almost 80% of our clientele was electricity boards, and that time they were not even corporatized. They were state government owned entities.
I know.
But despite that, rarely was anybody wanting to let us go. They would be happy that yes, we continued, and most of the places we continued for 3 years, 5 years, 7 years, though it was started off as a 1-year contract, but we continued to do that. So this is kind of the innovation we brought in.
Did you have to increase your employees considerably at this point of time?
Yes, because our sites those days were extended from I think almost from Gandhidham in Gujarat to Cochin in Kerala. This side I think we had we didn't go beyond Vizag. So Vizag to central India, Madhya Pradesh. So we covered almost, I think, in fact, we were the largest so-called track maintenance contractors, maintaining almost about 1,400-1,500 kilometers of railway track for various entities, ports, electricity boards, some of the cement plants, and things like that. So that, yes, that brought in, one is the sites, each of them had good managers or good engineers, plus the labor itself was large. So that was something which was scary, frankly, because managing that kind of labor, yes, that was a bit scary. But then, yes, we somehow those days we never had any labor unrest. Maybe the practices which we adopted, we were fair pay masters, normally paying more than the minimum wages required in that area, taking care of them wherever possible. We provided, because we insisted on the clients to provide housing, because they had also their own labor for which. So we insisted that on the same place our staff also should be provided, even if it's on payment basis. So these kind of things. So yes, managing was difficult, but then yes, we were able to. As a rule, the site engineers or managers had to come to the head office on the 5th of every month, because 7th was technically the government disbursal date for salaries. Okay. You had to disburse salaries to the labor before 7th. So 5th was a rule, whether it was Saturday, Sunday, didn't matter. We would be in office, yes, with their reports, and 6th they would go back with, because those days again bank transfers were not online, so they would go back with cash and pay the salaries on 7th kind of. So that also gave us an idea to interact with people, to understand what is happening at site and things like that. And I think technically in the the managerial level and everything, we might have had a staff of just about 25, 30. But then that helped each other know what was happening on each site, what was the problems they were facing and things. So in fact, that is another kind of innovation we brought in from learning from other industries. Though we didn't need to, but then we used to come out with a 4-page newsletter. Because literally photocopied, nothing but typed kind of thing, one photograph pasted.
What's happening in the company.
So that people, like I said, somebody was sitting in, say, Gujarat, and somebody was sitting in Kerala.
Okay.
Now, excepting for that meeting, so then at least he would go back and read what is happening, or head office, because again, those days, no email, no internet, so they wouldn't know online what's happening. So at least do what has happened in the head office, who's new, what kind of jobs we are starting to do, or what is the new project we've got. Basically, it would be that information only, nothing much. So just a 4-pager, black and white.
So you had this intention of, communicating with employees from that.
Yeah, fortunately, my marketing and the advertising background came in handy there. Okay. Because I realized that unless we make a brand for ourselves, we can't stand apart. And brand need not be only with the customer. Brand has to be across. So that is how we thought that, yes, people, even at the smallest site, should be proud of the fact that, yes, he's working for, even if it's a contractor, so-called, he's working for a company like us. And that is what we insisted.
So it also brings that feeling of belongingness, that pride in the company.
Yes, absolutely. And every site where we did, we actually used to have a proper board of our company saying that this particular location is maintained by BARSYL kind of thing. Okay. We insisted on that. The client also agreed everywhere. They had no objection to that, but we insisted on that. So that is how that, pride of whole thing, because yes, to showcase their own skill was visible, that yes, if it's well maintained, then everybody would comment that it's a well maintained asset.
So what was Mr. Srinivasan's contribution in this giant leap?
Yes, it was, for us it was a big see. First, when he was coming in, we were all scared, because none of us had closely, so I had known him on a professional level, but I had never closely interacted. So I still remember we were all scared as to, first of all, whether he'll feel comfortable in a small cab room where three people actually sharing that room, whereas his ante room was that big kind of thing.
Yeah.
So, coming in from the railway board and things like that. But then he casually walked in and he said, "Where's my table?" That's it. He never asked for it. And he picked up his bag and sat down. He said, "Yes, this is very comfortable." So that made us a lot more comfortable. Then one thing, apart from, of course, the technical aspect, as a human being, he was, I think, a revelation to all of us. He was, I don't think I ever met a more humble person than him.
Okay.
Of course, he came from a very humble background, but to have risen to the level of a CEO of the railways.
And still maintain that humility.
And maintain that after that was just amazing. In fact, he would come with his simple one tote bag he would carry and be there in the office promptly 9:30. Though we never had any specific timing for him, but he would be there between 9:30 and 9:45. And then instead of calling anybody to his table, he would actually walk.
Wow.
That was something which he always, as a practice, did till quite late in the thing. He would come to me, or he would go to even the secretaries and sit with them and dictate there rather than calling them to his table. He would sit with them. By then, computers had started. So he says, "Why take a shorthand? I'll dictate. You type directly," kind of thing.
So it was easy to establish a rapport with the employees.
So we never, though we still had that for a couple of months. We still had that kind of hesitation, but we never kind of.
He made it easier for
He made everything from his side so comfortable for all of us that he would never, throw tantrum or never do anything. If there was no typist available, you would just write down by hand and leave it on her table to type it out whenever she came back or something like that. So he was literally a great thing. Apart from that, his technical skill, meaning understanding of the railways, I think is another great. His experiences, because at the board level, at the policy making level, he had created quite a lot of new policies, path-breaking policies for the railways. So that taught us a lot, that how even within the so-called constrained systems, people can be made to think differently, how you can do different things. Plus, he had worked in quite a few, literally from the eastern side, from Calcutta to, almost till Somnath. He had worked in all the different zones, including down south in Hyderabad. So, geographically also, he had an understanding of the entire railway system very, very thoroughly.
The right person to guide you on your growth.
So, he could actually name, I think, any station you tell him, he would pinpoint it straight away on the map. That smallest station, he would pinpoint that this is in this state, this is a railway zone, or this is the place kind of thing. He was so thorough about it. So, indirectly, we were forced to match him. so when we went
it
to him,
always helps if you have a person of
exactly.
that stature.
So when we had to go to him with a question, we had to go prepared. So that is the indirect kind of positive thing we had. And also, personally for me, for example, he never ever said, "What a stupid question you're asking," because I used to, take time from him and tell him that I don't understand this or I don't this thing. But then yes, he would always be open, and he would always also see another good thing. Though he was a typical bureaucrat, but he had a long-term vision for the organization, which is very, very rare. Though he's not one of the founders, but he had a long-term vision for the organization. So he should always tell me, Sunil, my job is to introduce you to a person. Next is your job.
You have to take it forward.
You have to take it forward. So that's why he would make sure that whenever he was going for any meeting or something, he would take me along. He was introduced to the highest level in the railway ministry. Whenever we would go, absolutely, and because of him I had access, and then of course I kind of continued to maintain that relationship, and a lot of them I still continue, and thanks to him. It's not my kind of credit, it's because he made the right atmosphere for them to accept me and do that. So that is something which was very, very amazing. He would come to site, he would actually literally say, "No, site I also need to see." So if I was going, you'd say, "Yes, we'll take a flight or a train or whatever it is, and we'll go and travel by." In fact, I still remember we were negotiating one of our first large contracts with the Jindal Group, consulting contracts, where I had initially, set up the meeting, I had done everything. We were almost on the verge of signing off, and I fell ill, so I couldn't go. And he volunteered. He said, yes, my dad, and because he was the engineering expert, he said, "No problem, we'll go." And they went there and discussed in Bangalore. They signed up and everything. And I think they were supposed to travel the next day or something, but suddenly next day morning I see both of them in the office. So he says, "No." We said, "Why waste hotel money? We'll took a bus in the night and came back." So it was like I said, that simple about it. He said, "No, why should we waste, So, and those days cancellation was not a big deal in Indian Airlines. He said, "Yes, we just cancelled the ticket. Why waste one more night in the hotel? We finished, signed off the contract." So we said, "Yes, let's take a bus." And he took a bus, imagine, from Bangalore to Hyderabad, just like that. In fact, he was the one who said that we'll take a bus. So no tantrums, nothing. So that was another very, very big thing.
One takeaway from what you say is that he's a person who was passionate about what he did.
Absolutely.
It was not just another job or something like that. He just enjoyed what he was doing.
In fact, he was very clear. He said, "I want to associate with an organization who doesn't misuse my name." That was something, because before joining us itself, he had mentioned that to Mr. Ravindra. And that's why I'm happy to be here, because I know that people like you will not misuse and only add kind of thing, both value to me and to both of us can complement each other. So that is something which he did. So these kind of things, opened up, and same again, because of that confidence which he got with his presence, we could start looking at other areas, other things, newer areas, what we could do differently. And we started, again, like I said, engaging, looking at, how to learn from others. So again, since there was no benchmarking, but then again, we looked at how to grow the organization. So we had another consultant, there was a group of consultants. In fact, there was one Mr. Shastri, who was HR head from ITC. There was one Mr. R.K. Mishra, who retired as Dean of IP recently.
Okay.
And there was one professor from Anantapur University. I forget his name. He was Mr. Naidu. And there was two of them from ITC. These 4 people, I had known one of them actually. So they had formed a small kind of HR consulting organization. So we said, yes, now you tell us how to create the organization kind of thing. So we were always open. So these were innovation, because otherwise for a small company which was doing maybe 35, 40 lakhs of business those days per annum, this was not normal. But then thanks to the founders and my ideas, but then accepting that yes, we need to look beyond, and that is how we can make a proper professional business setup. So we hired them. They kind of made a good, they spent almost a month and a half, half a day every day, talking to people, counseling us, and then organizing workshops, suggesting what should be our immediate kind of organization, midterm, long-term kind of organization. So that is how. So these were.
So you got a marketing consultant, then you got a
organization consultant. Yeah. So that's what I'm saying. These were in that sense very innovative steps, both from the industry point of view and also from the size of our organization point of view, because technically we are.
So you were thinking big. You were not thinking that you should just maintain status quo or something.
Big was never in our mind.
No,
I think it was
obviously
more continuity in our mind. See, that was one thing we never looked at. Even today, for example, we don't so much look at top line. We look at institution building. So I think that was one thing we were clear, that the founders were clear. At least they wanted to leave behind a legacy. They didn't want to leave behind something which people will forget easily, and that is the kind of responsibility they gave to me. So for me, it was a kind of double load for me, that I not only had to grow for my sake, grow the business, but also ensure that the legacy
to realize the dream of the founders.
Yes, exactly. So that was, and continues to be that I cannot let go or cannot loosen myself for any aspect which the founders would not have been happy. So that brought in a lot of ethical issues, a lot of governance issues, a lot of other issues, which no regrets, which helped us to reach where we are. And that also kind of thing allowed us to look at, like I said, people beyond, because what we thought was right, we wanted to have a sounding board, that whether what we are doing is right or not. So that is where my dear friend R.K. or Ramakrishna, as we call him, came in, because he was originally appointed as a consultant.
I was about to ask one more consultant.
He came because he was running, after his career with, as last of his position was as CEO of Nicholas Labs in India, in Hyderabad.
Okay.
So I had been in touch with him. He was our neighbor initial days when in Sikandrabad office. We were neighbors, so I had known him, and we kept in touch with him. So after he kind of quit a full-time job there, he was available. So I asked him, would you be willing to advise? Because he was basically an HR consultant and everything, plus industry. So I approached him and he said, yes, I have time on my hands, so I can.
That's how he joined you.
Yeah, no, he came in as a consultant only. So he had some discussion. He said, no, first thing I think I need to do is that not just organization, but I need to put creativity into people. So he actually did a workshop on creative thinking and sort of out of the box thinking.
Okay.
That was again almost about twice or thrice a week for about 2 months or something, where everybody was involved. He broke them down into teams. But right from the chairman to the lowest person, everybody had some role to play or the other. Everybody was there. And everybody thoroughly enjoyed it, including, like I said, the founders who were. So the age difference was from the youngest could have been 21-year to 65-year-old. Everybody was there. But then everybody kind of thoroughly enjoyed that.
So you would ask questions that no one anticipated.
Sort of, yeah. Because every day there was nothing which was set down as a syllabus. So every day you would come up with a new presentation, or every session you would come up with a new presentation, and every session you would leave us behind with an assignment, which was something different. So that, like I said, yes, that
helped open your mind.
At every level, that are we anything, because that was creative thinking. So he questioned the processes. He questioned simple things like, even the creative things like whether our letterhead should be the way, if we are trying to create a brand, whether we could change colors there, whether we could, invoices could be differently made. Okay. So everything we looked at. He formed teams for that and looked at and gave them the free hand that you come with suggestions. A lot of our work is report based. So whether our report which we prepare can be created, content being the same, but how can it be more appealing? How can we make it more easy to read? So every, total, it was literally a churn of the
makeover.
Exactly. It was a churn of the entire thing which we thought was we were doing the best kind of thing.
Correct.
So while technically it was good, but we wanted to also appear professional, not just on technical. So even a simple typed letter, how it could be made better. Those kinds. So that 45 days, everybody enjoyed, and suddenly we became a kind of a changed organization. That everybody used to always think that how we can do things differently, or so that became the kind of buzzword. And I think he ran that workshop and a couple of other workshops. Then we took him on as not as a director, but again as a advisor or a consultant to kind of look at processes, look at how things. So people, because he's basically from the pharma industry, so everybody would ask us that, what is a pharma guy doing in such a high-tech rail industry kind of thing. But then the way we looked at it, or all of us looked
building
at it,
the health of the organization.
Yeah, literally, because we looked at it that end of the day it is a business.
Correct.
See, domain knowledge or technical skill is one part, but unless you convert that into a good business, you can't succeed. See, while you have the technical strength, but you also need to have a strong business base, both financially as well as ethically, governance-wise, everything. So since he was an outsider, that also gave us, a lot of kind of homework or a lot of preparatory work to do, because he would ask us questions which are not even thought of, because he came in with a blank slate. So we had to be prepared and convince ourselves also that what this answer was right, so that we could then debate with him, discuss with him whether what we think is right or what he's suggesting is right. So that, again, like I said, changed a lot of our own thinking. That yes, how we should do business, and not necessarily to look at only railway people to run the business kind of thing. So while my coming in was more, I think, a compulsion. For him, it was not compulsion, but we realized the value an outsider can bring in. So that, again, in a sense, was a lot of innovation, because even today, most of the engineering firms, whether they're in manufacturing or in consulting, still prefer to get only people from their domain into the leadership position at the board level or whatever.
They're not open to the idea of having
somebody. Even today, you rarely find, people. Okay, today a lot of maybe public limited companies, because it's compulsion to get a independent director, they might look at non-technical people, but given a choice, they would still. So that is something which, again, we realize that yes, it's very good for us to look at outsiders, because every industry has certain good practices. And more we imbibe that practice, better we become. So that is how we brought in. So that is where, having Ramakrishnan with us helped us. And also, like I said, gave us a different, more global, because he had a lot of global exposure in the industry. He had traveled the world. He had marketed his company, his products to the world. So that also kind of gave us that vision that while we might be small need not be restricted in geography. Small might be volume-wise, but we need to look at bigger picture. There is much bigger.
There's scope.
Much bigger things happening outside. So that is something.
So you had people from advertising, from pharma, and who else?
And then, by then it was only these two. But then yes, that was a good mix. That yes, we could create a brand, we could create a business, and we also had the technical domain with us. So all these three combination helped us in terms of doing things differently, looking at various aspects of the business more critically, and also as an organization. We, like I said, we always were professional, but also that made a process for us to be transparent, ethics definitely was there, and also be good governed. Because apart from the founders, the other thing which we did was consciously we had outside people as directors. Initially, before Mr. Ramakrishna joined, we had one Mr. Rajarao, who was one of the directors there. So again, because we thought that there should be somebody to kind of question us, who's not part of the day-to-day
Look at
business.
it from outside.
Who is not part, though Mr. Rajarao was a railway man, but then we thought that yes, having him question whether we are doing right or not would at least give us some kind of, sure footing, as well as some kind of corrections if we are going wrong. So that is where, after some...
So you felt an outsider could look at the weak points, the weaknesses, not just
because most of the
strengths.
time people are scared of outsiders because they're not transparent. See, most of the organizations don't want to so-called disclose to people.
Correct.
But we were very clear that not only within the organization, which is the fact today also, that there is nothing to hide. So even today, our balance sheets, our numbers are open to everybody in the organization. So similarly, we thought that an outsider should know if you are wanting to get full value of that person. It's like something like going to a doctor and not disclosing your illness and expecting them to give you a cure.
Correct.
So that's why we thought that if you are actually going to make use of that gentleman who is spending his time, then we need to fully disclose. So that is how we had Mr. Rajarao, Mr. Nagarajan, who was also technically a minor shareholder. He came in from the financial background. He was the last chairman of the privatized Andhra Bank. So he came in and he was absolutely blunt in that sense. All of us were very scared because he would say, there is no emotion in business.
Okay.
If the business is not making money, please stop it. So you used to tell all these founders and all that you're wasting your time. Your pension is giving you better returns. You don't waste your time. So unless you improve, because his idea was that money, meaning, unless you're doing justice to your time, there is no point wasting. So, a lot of that kind of pressure. So outsiders, we realized that were actually more beneficial for us. Because while we could become complacent that, as long as our expenses are met, we are happy.
Correct.
People like Mr. Nagarajan and all would question that why are you doing this particular activity? You don't even know how to cost it, or those kind of things. So that we always saw that benefit of having that outside advice.
So every question got a different reaction and a different plan.
Yeah, and a different learning for us.
Yeah.
Because again, every time we didn't know what they would ask. So every time we would be learning, we would be prepared.
No, after the session, probably you'll sit and rethink your strategy.
Exactly. And again, sometimes with the strategy, we would bounce it off that this is what we are planning to do, corrections. What should we do, whether this is right or not. So overall, like I said, because it was then not just the 4 people who were within part of the organization, outside are also very willing to give us. So these small little things I always consider were very, very innovative. One is for the time, for the size, and for the volume of our business. It was very different thinking. But then, yes, all of us agreed that this was the best way to, like I said, because always all of us had this in mind that we have to create an institution and not an individual. So the individuals can come and go. The institution should create.
Most importantly, you had an open mind. You were willing to learn from whoever.
Yeah, I think that is where more than me. I think it's the seniors, because after putting in 30 and 40 years of business, career,
you can always think that I know this all.
Yeah,
I don't want to learn
think credit to them that they never had egos. They never thought that I know everything. So yes, they knew that business area I don't know. Technical, I know. So they were very clear there. And that allowed them to also become better. Because it's not that they didn't. They picked up business sense. They picked up, how to look at costing. They picked up all those things. Because they were open-minded, like you rightly said. They never let that ego come that, no, I've run such a large organization. I had, after all, 10,000 people reporting to me. Or, I was so-called managing people, so I know HR. Or I was managing finance or projects, so I know budget. No, they never let that.
So different backgrounds always complement growth.
Yes, absolutely. Like I said, a lot of our growth or whatever the reason for where we are today is because we took that positive step in the initial days itself. Because then that
foundations are good.
Yeah, and that became a sort of our process of growth. So, whenever, like I said, then after his initial days as advisor, we thought that yes, it would be much better to make him a director on the board. So he'll be more involved rather than purely give us advice and kind of thing. So that's when, in fact, it was our chairman who suggested that why not have RK on our board. So initially it was that same question, again, not a railway man, nothing known about it. But then we debated, we said, yes, that will be
still on the track.
Yeah, and he's been associated with us, so he understands our business. So that is where he became an integral part of the organization and continues to be.
And Mr. Manoranjan Prasad also?
That's what, he came in much later. In fact, because Manoranjan, that point of time, was purely a friend for me. So, Mr. Arjun Prasad's son, he was only a friend. So he was in Bombay, he was working for HMT then, he was the regional manager there, and he was continuing to be there. So that in fact that thought never even came, because we said that I can't afford to have him, frankly. Coming from that kind of a position, we couldn't afford. So that initial thought never came across that we could also have him there kind of. So yes, the things were continuing like that. In fact, before Mr. Manoranjan Prasad, we actually expanded our board to include, again, personally known to all of us, but again an outsider. Mr. D.S. Rao came in at the board, who used to be the managing director of Tata Projects.
Okay.
So again, we thought that, with his background, again running a commercial organization as the helm, he was with Tata Projects for almost 7 or 8 years before we made the offer to him. And of course, background was railways. So we thought that again, he would be incisive, because he's made the organization, Tata's grow there, Tata Projects grew quite a lot under him. So he was also gracious enough to kind of agree to join us. Again, very, very pointed, very clear, very business focused, and very meticulous in his kind of questions and answers, in his record keeping. So we couldn't miss out any responses. We had committed in a meeting that we'll give it in about 7 days. He would promptly call up on the 6th day that, Sunil, I hope I'm getting the response tomorrow. So these are things which actually helped us. And today we find that is something which we need. We don't look at it as a burden. Correct. Because we realize the benefit of having these kind of people on board with us. So then we had, similarly we had another gentleman, one Mr. S.D. Limaye, who passed away. Mr. S.D. Limaye was, I think even today, is the authority on bridge design in India. In fact, there are a couple of awards named after him. He belongs to Pune. The Pune University has instituted an award named after him. He was from the railways. He was chief engineer in the Konkan Railway. And, a personal friend of mine. I had kind of known him for long. We were very close. So, again, when he also was heading, before he joined us, he headed a UK-based company called Soville International, which was a very prominent consulting company. He was the CEO of that company in India. And then he decided he just didn't want to kind of work full-time. So I invited him and he was happy to come in. So again, he was very critical of our quality because he was a pure technical man. So he brought in that he would question us on how we are doing a particular project or timelines, quality issues. So like I said, we always realize that more than just four of us or whatever inside, it is the two or three outsiders who actually brought in more value. So people would question us also that this is not a statutory requirement for you. Why are you doing this? Why are you having outsiders? Which today also a lot of people question us that this is not. But then we find that yes, that is very, very beneficial for the organization because it's again not about individual egos or individual thoughts. If an outsider we feel can add value to this organization, most welcome.
It's very interesting actually. Instead of looking around for people in the same profession, the same industry, you're looking for outsiders who can give you over value addition.
Yeah, because end of the day, like I said, this is a business.
Correct.
Like always repeat that it is technical skill is one part, but in any business that is a very minor part. You can always hire technical skill.
Correct.
Strategy or thinking cannot be hired. That has to come from within and from the top leadership. So that is more important is what we always felt. That is something which we should. And like I said, getting an outsider who's not emotionally attached or hands-on in the business will always give you better advice because they are able to distance themselves and look at it from an unbiased view. And in good faith, they will question you. See, they have nothing to gain or nothing to hide.
Correct.
So they will question you in good faith that why are you doing this or why can't you look at it this way. So yes, sometimes the feedback does hurt that you slogged over it and suddenly somebody is rejecting your proposal saying that this is all nonsense. You feel hurt. But then when you sit back, when we sit back and then analyze that why did he comment like this, then you realize that yes, we were actually making a mistake, or we were doing a blunder kind of thing. So all these things, like I said, from any perspective, if I look at it, I always consider these as very, very innovative steps. Because normally for a so-called group of people to set up a business was in itself innovation. Then thinking how to create an institution and not looking at what is in it for me in terms of money.
Correct.
Nobody ever looked at it that way. They looked at it that yes, we should have institution which will not leave behind. So think of that, bringing me in. So each of these I feel is a very, very innovative kind of step. So again, like what I mentioned, that innovation has been in our DNA in every cell, not only in technical part. Yes. I think that became a part of our process itself. So what we look at is
innovation helps you to adapt to different changes around you.
Normally like
you're not stuck and rigid in your thinking.
Absolutely. See, innovation normally people tend to associate with product or a commodity. People don't think that innovation can happen within you. See, this is innovation within you. People don't realize that you could think, talk differently, you could think differently, and that is you're innovating a new self.
Correct.
So that is something which people miss out. People always tend to look at physical form of innovation. But we have benefited personally and as an organization, wherever we are today, is because of that continuous innovation, continuously trying to do what things, what we could do differently. When Mr. Srinivasan was kind of much in his good health itself, but he realized that if I had to continue this legacy or the organization has to continue, I need to get in somebody equally good as a chairman. Because somebody who can, again, add value and also feels respected. So we were lucky to have that point of time chairman of the railway board and founder chairman of TRAI, Mr. M. Ravindra, who again, everybody knew. He came in initially as a board member. We invited him again, since of course he had known me as a child. So when I requested him, he said, Sunil, I can't refuse. I still remember myself and Ramakrishna, both of us had gone to Chennai to request him. We were having coffee. He said, Sunil, what do you want me to do? I said, sir, he said, tell me where I have to sign. He literally never asked me. He just simply told me, Sunil, tell me where I have to.
You got some very, very eminent people to join you.
Again, I would say it is, I think, the legacy of the founders. See, otherwise they wouldn't have cared for me, very frank. And that is what I strongly believe, that it is what they left behind or what they created is what gave others the confidence that their name would not be misused. Because like
It's a very credible organization.
Yes, that is something, because Mr. Arjun Prasad, I remember, always used to say that, Sunil, if money making was our only sole objective, then I would rather trade in coal, or I would rather train in mine, because I know that business.
Simpler.
I've been offering wagons to so many coal loaders. I would have made more money by that. He said that is not our aim. Our aim is to continue the good name which we have as an individual, which we've created, is what that people should still continue to respect us post-retirement, continue to respect the organization with which we are associated. So that something is what we even today continue. So today also, like I said, yes, when Mr. Ravindra joined, we were, like I said, very delighted. But then for him, it was natural. He also didn't expect, or he didn't suspect anything. He said, yes, tell me what I have to do, or where I have to sign. Which both of us were literally bold, that he would ask us questions. I still remember Chennai evening sitting for coffee, and straight away saying, Sunil, tell me.
I'm with you.
Send me the letter and where I have to sign. Acceptance. Simple. He never discussed anything about, because he knew the organization. And of course, he still continues to be our chairman. And again, very, very thorough gentleman. And also very, very, I would say, because he's been on the board of about 5 or 6 big corporates. So he knows how to grill us. So all of us are still scared today of him. He might be very comfortable personally, yes. And I sound him out for any idea. I can call him up at any time in the day. And he's always available. But very sharp. He understands business, he understands industry, and very, very widely respected even today. It's almost close to, I think, 25 years since he retired. But even today, people respect him. Some of them have just joined the service when he was the chairman. And when they get to know that, oh my God, Mr. Ravindra is your chairman, I actually hear this. They say, please convey my regards, because we learned a lot just by his being there as the CEO, by hearing about his stories, that what kind of a person he was, and how he could actually tell the railway minister that I will not do this, or walk out of the room of the railway minister for certain issues. And
amazing.
Yeah. So both Mr. Srinivasan and Mr. Ravindra were known for that. Mr. Srinivasan actually never refused to sign a file where the railway minister had recommended something, and he was totally against. He put his note. He said, yes, you can throw me out of the job, but I will not.
How many people will be like that?
Exactly. So that is something the organization even today remembers, even in those people, that these were the people who set the right for such a large organization, never bothering about that. So we've learned from those kind of people. And that is something where, again, like I said, because of our transparency, because of our whole kind of, way we looked at business, we never looked at it as a money-making venture. Even today, we always say that the institution should speak for itself, not the individuals. And
very nice.
Collectively, individuals make the institution. So
it's very obvious that you didn't have egos or difference. Maybe you had difference of opinions, but you could sit and talk about it and build something of value.
Yeah, because finally everybody knew that each of our interest was only the organization.
Yeah.
So even if we had differences, we knew that we were fighting because it was good of the organization, not for any personal benefit or not for any personal.
I can see what Mr. Ravindra has brought to you, because I see that emotion in your eyes when you're talking about him. So I mean, it's very rare to find such individuals
because
whose credibility goes...
Exactly, because even today, that name is credible.
Yeah.
See, that is what I'm saying. That even today...
Beyond service.
It's almost like I said, 25 years since he retired. But even today, in the railway board or the ministry, if I say that Mr. Ravindra he's my chairman and he wants to come and meet so-and-so, nobody ever refuses a meeting with him.
Very nice.
He's that kind of credibility.
It's very heartwarming to listen to this.
No, that's what I'm saying. So we've been, like I said, as an organization, quite a lot of it is planned, but also we've been lucky that yes, our innovative steps helped us and made us kind of. So that is why I always say that innovation is always good for the organization, provided you are open to innovation. Keep innovating always. It's not a one-time step. You can't be innovative for one. It's a journey.
You worked hard and you got the opportunity. I think that's what I would define as luck, to find
Yes, luck definitely plays a big role. Yeah. Yes, I definitely agree that you might work, because a lot of people work hard. But some of them are just lucky. So I think I happen to be right place, right time.
Yeah.
Maybe that's the only way I would like to put it. But like I said, for any organization, I strongly believe, learning from my own experience, that yes, egos is definitely not the place where organizations can succeed. But biggest thing is reinventing yourself, or what I call as innovation is an ongoing process. It's a journey. It's not a one-time process that I've innovated, my room looks
It doesn't
new.
end. It doesn't end.
And no, innovation has to be an ongoing process and at all levels. It cannot be only at the top level or at the bottom level. No, everybody has to innovate his or her way of doing work, his or her way of thinking. Only then that innovation truly happens, because it cannot be forced. Innovation is a state of mind, I would say, literally.
We got so many definitions of innovation today. And I think, like you said, the institution is more important than individuals.
Absolutely.
And you always work towards that aim. So you got wonderful individuals to join you in your journey.
I think they're connected with the thought. They also found that, yes, this is something worth associating with, that each of us could complement each other, the institution to the individual and the individual to the institution, that they would be able to kind of connect and both of them grow, kind of thing.
I'm sure all your employees who are watching would have many takeaways from today's discussion.
I hope so.
Are there any questions?
Not yet.
Not yet.
So
I think they are fully convinced with what you said. There are no doubts whatsoever. So on that note, we shall end this discussion. We'll meet again next month in a fresh edition of MD Speaks. Till then, goodbye.
Thank you, Aruna. Goodbye. Bye-bye.